Welcome to the Podski. What? Oh yeah!
Listen here, baby.
Dig it?
You understand, baby?
What? First name John, last name Baker. Uh-huh. Brother.
Hello and welcome to the Podski. I am your host, the man of 1,000 gimmicks, John Baker. And boy, am I fired up for today. Today is a special show. Last week we had our first guest, and we're coming right back again with another guest. This time it is part of the Brethren of the Junk Bays group chat. We got AZ Jarhead. He's coming in, and we're going to talk about our most underrated top 10 wrestlers of all time. So it's going to be vastly different from my previous list of the top 5 most overrated, which after doing this show, I believe I could go back and rework that entire thing and I could get an entirely different list. But hope you all enjoyed last week's episode of Woodstock 99. I loved having Allison on the pod. She was an excellent guest. We're for sure getting her back on here again. And hopefully you all checked out That's So Dolphins Talk. It was a incredible game that me and Triggs got to watch this past weekend. It was just absolutely incredible. Speechless throughout that whole entire second half. And we hope you enjoyed that. We hope you rate, review, and subscribe to the Podski. And we also hope that you follow us on Twitter at @the_Podski and give us the follow on Facebook, share it, like it, love it, retweet it, all that good stuff, because we're shucking and jiving right now. And but let's get into this week's episode of the top 10 most underrated wrestlers. All right, welcome into the Podski. We got our guest today. It is AZ Jarhead. What's going on?
How's it going, bud?
It is going great. We are going to do our top 10 most underrated wrestlers of all time.
Wait. I thought this was Dolphins talk. let's just jump right into it, man. Top 10 most underrated. Ready? I got Chad Henne, John Beck, Reggie Roby. Who you got?
Tyler Pigpen, Sammy Knight, definitely not Ted Ginn.
Oh man,
Cleo
definitely
Lemon is the biggest one.
Cleo Lemon. I was going to ask you how did Cleo Lemon do this weekend? I know they won the game.
Dude, he was slinging it around 6 tutties.
All right, sounds good.
All right, so we are doing a list of the top 10 most underrated wrestlers. I've got a great list of 10. And I know you got a great list of 10, so let's hear your number 10 first. What you got?
Well, I think where we got to start, when you get on a wrestling podcast, right? You should say your pronouns up front so everybody knows kind of who you are. And I think that the pronoun should be your favorite wrestler. So my pronouns are Hart and Savage. Just to get that out of the way.
Oh my God.
Look, I'm super excited to be here, man. I think this is awesome. I'm a fan of the pod. Obviously we know each other, from way back too, but all the episodes so far were awesome, man. I'm really excited to be here.
Yep. Well, thanks for coming on the Podski, and I'm ready for this one. I'm fired up.
So I think like you kind of did your list a little bit different than I did. And in full disclosure, obviously I'm a little older than you. So my wrestling generation is a little bit different than yours, right? So the way that I kind of wanted to do mine, and the way I was thinking about it over the last couple of days was, for me, all those years growing up and being a mega fan of wrestling, of every promotion I could get my eyes on, right? I always knew, obviously, Benoit was underrated, right? And Owen Hart is underrated, and Kurt Hennig has always been an underrated guy. For me, I wanted to kind of go a little bit deeper. I wanted to get a little bit of a deeper cut and some deeper tracks, with my my top 10. So you're probably going to hear some guys on mine that are going to be a little bit, maybe a little bit surprising for you, and maybe even a little surprising for the audience too, that might not be super familiar with some of those guys. So that's kind of the approach I had with it. I just wanted to look a little deeper with mine, with guys that were kind of off the radar. So how did you come about putting your list together?
My list was basically people that I thought about whenever I was watching, and just thinking about them. Just they never ever really got over the hump. They were always kind of just always in the mid card, and they were never really over the top guys. Like they never ever got that really big push to the top. That's basically how I thought about my list, which is
okay. Awesome.
And there is a common theme throughout all of mine.
Cool. Okay.
The era and like the exact like style of wrestler.
Sure.
Now that
okay.
I'm looking at it.
Okay, so I mean, I'm happy to go first. So you want me to jump into it here? So, or if you want to go first, whichever's good for you, man.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, so for my number 10, I picked Savio Vega for number 10, and that's a guy that I honestly I just never appreciated that guy at the time. When I was a fan, he just was never my type of wrestler when I was watching it in my formative years, right? As a teenager and early 20s, stuff like that. So, but that's definitely a guy that over the course of time I've come to really appreciate. I've really come to appreciate his work. He's never really had the character, never really even had the body to get over, especially in the WWE. But the guy was a hell of a worker, man. And that Caribbean strap match with Austin, I think is phenomenal. I've seen that match a bunch of times. It's one of my favorite all-time matches. I really think that Savio did a lot of really good work to kind of get Austin over with the crowd. And I don't think people really appreciate that much. But for best matches too, I really like the WrestleMania 13 match, with him and Crush and Farouk. When they took on LOD and Ahmed. That match is pretty good too. So my number 10 is definitely Savio Vega.
I like it. Yeah. So like you're a huge fan of the new generation, and that's like my dead zone of like wrestling knowledge, because I've never done like a deep dive into the new gen era, and it's like one that I really want to do. I just never know like where to start. I always just think about like, well, hell, I already know that the Attitude Era is right around the corner, so why don't I just jump to the Attitude Era? That's my big block that I can't never get past. And I know the New Gen era is great, and there's great wrestlers in the New Gen era. I just never did. There's
just the colorfulness of the characters, both just in terms of character and in terms of presentation on the screen, is very colorful. And I think that the New Gen is a really fun era of wrestling.
Yep. So my number 10, this is strictly for the boys. It's just gonna for sure pop you too. I got Dan Barry coming in at number 10 from VP.
Of course you do.
Dan the Man, Three Doors Dan. We adore you, Dan, is from VPW Wrestling. That is a small promotion that is in Long Island, New York. And full disclosure, Mr. AZ and I went to see VPW earlier this summer, and that's where I found Dan Barry, and he was incredible. And he had a match with Mike Anthony on that show, and it was just so awesome. Loved every single second of it, and that is my number 10.
Yeah, what a great guy too. I mean, we talked to him a lot after the show. We all got a bunch of pictures. That was an awesome time hanging out with him and kind of picking his brain a little bit and having fun. And we had Teddy Mongoose in tow for that show too. That was a good trip up to Long Island.
We did, and even got a cameo from him as well.
That's right. That's right.
Great guy. All right, number 9. Who you got number 9?
Okay, so for my number 9, I went back even further with this one. So I've always been a really big fan of World Class. I did some of my schooling in Dallas at one point, and I had friends that used to go to the Sportatorium a lot growing up when they were kids. So I was really familiar with a lot of those wrestlers down there and a lot of the characters down there too. Especially kind of hearing crazy stories from those guys too whenever I was going to school down there. But my number 9. Gino Hernandez, Gorgeous Gino for me is definitely a top 10 most underrated guy. The dark side of the ring, I think, put a little bit more of a spotlight on him that a lot of people weren't familiar with, but this is a guy that was an unbelievable heel. And, it's easy to say, was this guy ahead of his time? But a lot of the workers in that time period were excellent at what they did. They were phenomenal on the mic. They were unbelievable heels. They were unbelievable baby faces. So, and Gino, even for that era, stood out as an unbelievable heel and just a really arrogant, cocky guy. I mean, the hair versus hair match with him and Chris Adams when they took on Kevin and Kerry Von Erich, man. I mean, that's a great little era of wrestling to check out. But even going, earlier than that, before he even came to World Class, I mean, he had a really good series of matches, a really good feud with Jose Lothario, believe it or not. The guy that was in Shawn Michaels' corner for a while. So that's a really good era to go back and watch. But the guy really found his groove in World Class, man. It's so fun to watch those old promos and those old shows. Man, what a great story. I mean, what a tragic story, but a great story in the realm of wrestling lore. The whole situation with Gino Hernandez. It's a shame he died when he did, because that guy was right on the doorstep of being something really, really important and really famous in the sport.
Yeah, that is a great Dark Side of the Ring.
I would say it's my favorite one. I mean, all of them are pretty good, but I think the Gino Hernandez one is my favorite one.
Yeah, I really. It kind of sucks they're not really bringing that back anymore, because I think they killed that. But hopefully they bring it back.
I think they killed themselves with that. Is what happened.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, that as well. My number 9 is Tajiri.
Okay, nice.
I always thought that Tajiri was awesome, and he was one of those guys who just never got over the hump. But he's a classic. He was never going to be anything higher than what he ever got to, just because he was so small in a big man's world. We all know that New York loves the big guys. But he had a great gimmick with the mist, and just the strange style of, it wasn't a strange style, but it definitely stood out compared to the rest of the roster. One thing I always liked that he did was the Tori Wilson angle whenever he was trying to steal her and get her as a manager. I always thought that one was really good. But a really good Tajiri match was the Cruiserweight title match, and it was on an episode of SmackDown from September 25th, 2003. I just love Tajiri a lot. I just never think he ever got his due. And he has some good road stories about how he always acted like he never knew English, but he loved Burger King Whoppers. That was always a really good tales of the road they always threw out there about Tajiri.
Who doesn't love a good Burger King flame grilled Whopper?
I mean, yeah, that's obvious. Yeah. But
awesome. That's a great one. His ECW stuff is fantastic too.
Yeah. And then again, that's another spot that I feel now you're exposing me to the audience, because ECW is out of my wheelhouse that I just never, I've obviously seen a ECW, but I've never done the deep dive into ECW. And it's one of the things I need to do for sure, instead of watching the same stuff over and over and over again.
Well, I think honestly, man, a lot of people, they have rose-colored glasses with the ECW stuff. And when you go back and watch it, you might be a little disappointed. It might not be as good as you remember it being. But if you look at certain matches or you look at certain feuds and you go back just to look for those kind of things, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable for the time. What a special place they have in wrestling, man. And they've done a lot. They did a lot over the years to kind of influence a lot of other people and to give a platform for a lot of guys to go find work, But and a lot of those guys got work there and they got a paycheck. Well, I mean, most of the time they got a paycheck, but there's a lot of guys that got over there and became national names where they never would have been able to do that otherwise. So I think that just ECW's got a really special place in the pantheon of wrestling, right? But I mean, sometimes going back and watching that stuff over and over again, you might not like it as much as you used to. But when you go back and look at certain things here and there, you're going to think it's really great.
Yep. All right, moving on. Who you got at number 8?
Okay, well, so that great segue here, Baker. So I mean, this number 8, this is one that I wanted to make sure was on here because it is very special to me. So number 8 is Tracy Smothers, and I lived in Los Angeles for a long time. I've met a pretty good amount of celebrities over the years, and I'm not trying to be
hashtag humble brag.
Yeah, I know, but I did run into people, here and there through whatever means. But and I met a lot of wrestlers growing up too, going to shows and going to conventions and signings and things like that. But I'll never forget Tracy Smothers hanging out with us outside the Altoona Jaffa Mosque. after an ECW show, man. That guy was just an unbelievable human being. He was so genuine. He cared so much about the fans. He treated everybody he met with equal respect. He is absolutely the best celebrity that I've ever met. And just being able to hang out with that guy and talk to him and ask him questions about wrestling and hear some stories from him over the years. I mean, that's just something that I'm never going to forget that, no matter how old I get. So I was really, sorry to hear that he had passed away, and that the last couple of years were not great for him. But, man, he was special in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, man. There's so many matches in there. That guy really had his groove in there, man. Those Candido matches were phenomenal when he was wrestling Chris Candido. I mean, that's another guy that could be on these lists too. But, I always love a good coal miner's glove match, but he had the primetime Brian Lee match is a favorite of mine too, the coal miner's glove match. So the guy wrestled everywhere. I love the FBI, as silly as it was. And believe it or not, when he was in USWA, which is a promotion that is a big time guilty pleasure for me, that I go back and watch that stuff all the time. I love USWA wrestling, but he was in the Nation of Domination in USWA. So he had some really funny factions, some really funny gimmicks over the years that were just awesome. Like, the guy was willing to do anything, man. And he was just a really, really humble guy, really genuine guy that was just a lot of fun to be around.
Right. And everything that you just said about Tracy Smothers is everything that you always hear about Tracy Smothers. Like, no one ever has a bad thing to ever say about him. And that is just testament to who he was.
Sure.
My number 8 is Billy Kidman. And I don't know. I always thought Billy Kidman was awesome, just because whenever I started watching because whenever I got in, it was that early 2000s, and right after WCW got bought, I always remember watching SmackDown and always seeing him do the Shooting Star. And I always thought that the Shooting Star was just awesome. And just the way that he did it, to me as a 10-year-old, looked phenomenal. And looking back now, not as great as what it was when I thought it was. But also, noted fact, he probably has an underrated hog because he was with Tori Wilson for all those years.
I mean,
so he's a double on this.
It's important to say that. It's important to get that on the record that we think that he's got an underrated hog.
Underrated hog and underrated wrestler.
Billy Kidman was hog wild before there was a hog.
For sure. One Billy Kidman match that I do remember, another one from 2003. Look at me, guilty pleasure. January 2nd, 2003 against Guerrero. And literally, we can say anything. Anybody that got in the ring with Guerrero, he made him look like $1 million. So you can only imagine how good it was. It was just spot after spot, just moving fast paced, just the way that I like it. Because I'm a spot monkey.
And our poll tonight for everybody out there, feel free to call into the show. Feel free to email. Does Billy Kidman have the biggest hog in Allentown? That's what we need to figure out.
That is true. Well, hit us up on _Podski on Twitter and let us know how big you think his hog is.
Excellent work.
All right, segue into number 7. Who you got for number 7?
Yeah, speaking of big hogs, I got number 7 here. I've got Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff is number 7.
It might be a little lopsided on one side, but
yeah. So Orndorff is one of those guys that I don't know if he necessarily got lost in the shuffle, but that Saturday night's main event work, especially during the run where he had with Hogan, is absolutely fantastic. And to be honest with you, I think those Saturday night main event shows during that time were some of the best wrestling that was ever on television. I mean, those shows are phenomenal, man. Going back and watching them is a lot of fun from start to finish. They're an hour long. You're in there, you're out of there. There's action. There's really good stuff. It's a really great production. I mean, that probably is my favorite show that's ever been on nationally in wrestling. But with Orndorff, I mean, great physique, right? Super awesome physique. Very believable heel. Did a good job as a babyface too. I mean, the guy main evented the first WrestleMania. But a lot of people don't even realize that anymore. But he did. He was in the main event of the first Mania. And that the Hogan cage match. on Saturday Night's Main Event, where they both touched the floor at the same time. I mean, I remember being a kid, man, and just being like, wow, I mean, what's going to happen here? You know, it was like so compelling of wrestling and such easy storytelling, but it was just an unbelievable time. But, you know, even in his later days, the fortune teller stuff, you know, the Gary Spivey WCW stuff is very much a guilty pleasure of mine. And if you haven't seen that stuff with Gary Spivey and Orndorff, you got to go watch that, because it's gonna pop you to the moon with that. But I really loved Pretty Wonderful. You know, the tag team that he had with Paul Roma and WCW. I thought that was one of the most underrated tag teams of all time. And that's probably a show that we should do at some point, just doing, you know, most underrated tag teams too, but Pretty Wonderful. Paul Orndorff, just as a singles wrestler too. I mean, that definitely a top 10 most underrated guy.
Wow. What a guilty pleasure for you, Paul Roma.
I love Paul Roma.
So my number 7 is another one where he had a lot of stuff that I had never seen previously. And all I know him for is that literally the end of his career, and that's Lance Storm. And I know he did a lot of great stuff in ECW and even into the WCW as well. But I remember him as coming in as the Un-Americans with Test and Christian, and then transitioning into that creepy little bastard run with Steve Austin, just yelling boring at him, even though like I didn't find him boring, but just him constantly yelling boring through all of his matches. I don't know. I just always thought Lance Storm just never, ever got over the hump in WWE, never got his due. And that's mainly because he was just a guy kind of got lost in the shuffle anyways. And he was kind of tailing off too. Great trainer, still working. Well, he might not be working now because of COVID, but and all that. But I think, well, he was a producer backstage for WWE for a lot of years, but he's still wheels turning on cranking out a lot of people at his training school. But always thought Lance Storm could have done a little bit better. And it kind of sucks though, because his last WWE match, I believe, was 2005. So, I mean, right in the heart of when I was watching and him phasing out. So always one of the guys I thought that was on Raw, on the Raw brand, that just never, I liked Lance Storm more than I liked Christian on that show for some reason. I can't even tell you why. I just did.
Yeah, I'm a big Lance Storm fan too. I mean, my probably my favorite thing from that WCW WWE run that he had there around that time was when he put the Canadian flag on the US heavyweight title.
Yeah,
the sticker over top of the US flag. I always would pop so hard for that, man. That was, I always thought that was very cool.
Yep. All right. So number 6. Who you got for number 6?
Okay, so number 6, I've got Chris Kanyon for number 6. So Kanyon is a guy, you know, really tragic story with this guy. Of course, I'm sure, you know, most people are familiar with it now, but totally love Mortis also. You know, he's one of my favorite wrestlers there for a while.
Love Mortis.
When he was on, you know, like Thunder and Saturday Night and stuff like that. I mean, I really love watching that guy. But innovator of offense moniker, obviously well-deserved with him. You know, a lot of really good stuff in the ring. I loved all his incarnations, man. You know, I loved the triple threat was awesome, you know, with DDP and or the triad rather with DDP and Bam Bam was great. I really love Mortis. I love Kanyon on his own. I love Champagne Canyon. All that stuff was great work. And, you know, I feel like you know, his lisp was such a great part of that Champagne character, right? It totally made it so much cooler that he had, you know, a little bit of a speech impediment with that. But I mean, I love that guy, man. I can't say enough good stuff about Kanyon. I love watching his matches. I love watching his offense. I'm sure he's inspired a lot of people, you know, down the line. But the Mike Awesome match at Slamboree in 2000 is really good. So if you haven't seen that, I would go check that out. And you know, today even I watched the Great American Bash 99 match where he and Dallas win the tag belts from Benoit and Saturn. Now, is the match perfect? No, but it's really good. That's a really good match too. So if you're looking for 2 good matches to go check out during that time, you know, for Kanyon, those are 2 pretty good ones.
Yeah, so where I ended my run of WCW, because I wanted to watch every single Nitro up until they closed business, and I am right around Spring Stampede of 99. And I never got to that, but that Mike Awesome is another guy that I need to do some more homework on for sure.
I mean, he could be on this list too. That guy could be on this list too.
Yeah, everyone always talks about Mike Awesome, and I just never. I mean, again, because I didn't dive into ECW, and then I still have yet to finish my WCW. So, but yeah, for sure, definitely a big. I know Canyon as Mortis, so like whenever I think of Canyon, I think of Mortis because I love Mortis. He just,
I mean, what a shame! What a shame that they haven't done anything with that character, making elites or anything with that yet. I'm surprised they haven't done that.
Yeah, seriously. Come on, Sweaty Bill, get it together. Because
Yeah.
like that figure would be incredible. Like I'd buy so many of them. Just a rock into stock. All right. My number 6 is a current guy, Chad Gable. And I think he's underrated. He just is he's a smaller Kurt Angle-ish style wrestler where he's very believable. Just I don't understand. The booking killed him dead, and Shorty G killed him dead too. And it's a real shame that they were really starting to push Jason Jordan, because I didn't like Jason Jordan in that American Alpha tag team in NXT. I always liked Chad Gable. And then when they made their way up to the main roster, and it was very clear that they were pushing Jason Jordan a lot more. And then somehow Jason Jordan got thrown into that whole Kurt Angle son deal, which was the absolute shits. It should have absolutely been Chad Gable. And he's starting to come around. Like he was in that finals for the King of the Ring a couple years ago with Baron Corbin, and that match was really good. For sure, watch that King of the Ring. He had a great run for the King of the Ring, and it's a real shame that he didn't win that. But if you're really looking for a good Chad Gable match, for sure, that NXT Takeover Dallas with FTR versus American Alpha, that match is awesome. And probably everybody's listening to this probably already seen that, just because we're huge lovers of NXT, the original NXT, but always thought that Chad Gable could have had more and just never got enough.
I really liked the American Alpha, when they were in NXT. I mean, I thought that, like you were saying, that tag team scene with them and Authors of Pain and FTR at the time was really fun. So there's a lot of really good matches between the three of them, which are definitely worth going back and checking out.
For sure. All right, that's halfway through our list here. Who you got at your number 5?
Okay, so number 5, I got a good one for you here, Big Show. I got Meng at number 5. So, this Meng is a guy, I love the Islanders when I was a kid. I really liked them. They were one of my favorite tag teams when I was a kid. And they just were so different. They were exotic. They wore, flashy colors and stuff like that in the ring. And they were a lot of fun to watch. But, it's always been kind of a pet peeve of mine over the years that the Faces of Fear, him and the Barbarian didn't get to win those tag team titles in WCW. Mm-hmm. So I thought that they were awesome in WCW. I thought Meng was just so good, and he was such a part of some really cool tag teams. The Islanders, obviously, Faces of Fear. He was in that the Colossal Connection too with Andre. In the WrestleMania 6 match against Demolition, where as Haku at the time, that he carried the whole match as Andre couldn't do anything. Andre was so immobile at that point that Haku ended up carrying the whole match, and that match is really, really good. But his presentation in WCW to me was really everything that pro wrestling is supposed to be. I mean, you don't really have to have belts in order to be over and to be a real threat in every match, right? And his matches were so physical, and they were so much fun to watch. And I went back and I watched that Sting match, which was the finals of the U.S. Heavyweight Title Tournament, Great American Bash '95. So you go back and watch that, Sting and Meng in the finals of that tournament. And, Meng kicked out of there. He powered out of the Scorpion Deathlock. And to my knowledge, I mean, that was probably the first time somebody had done that, or one of the very few times somebody had done that in a match. So that was a big kind of kudos to him, that they allowed him to do that against the guy that was kind of, the flagship guy in the promotion. I mean, obviously other than Hogan, at that point, but Hogan had just come in recently. But, for him to be able to do that against Sting, and that match with Sting is really good.
Yeah, huge fan of Meng. I just know from watching those Nitros that he was just so believable, and he was what you said, a legitimate threat in every match. Like, he was very believable. You always thought he was going to win every match, and he never needed a belt. That was one thing I always thought was awesome about Mang. Yeah, my number 5, another guy from that era of the Nitros, Mr. Dean Malenko, which probably shouldn't be on the list just because everyone kind of already knows that, Malenko was underrated or underappreciated or never really got like the big run, but I just love Malenko. Anytime I watch a Nitro or I throw an old Nitro on, I instantly gravitate towards any type of match that Malenko's having or anything that he was involved in. I love all of his work, and just a real shame that, he never really took off in WWE. Most like a lot of those guys that came over, really the crown jewels of those two, of that whole group coming over, sadly not Perry Saturn, but for sure was Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit. And really sucks at those two guys, because I do like what those guys did in WCW. It just seems like it never ever got translated over to WWE. But huge lover of Malenko, and literally any match that you can find on Nitro, because those TV matches were awesome because they weren't very long, and sometimes they would give him plenty of time to do the matches, which is what I really like too about Nitros, that they would give those cruiserweights the time, and that really built. That was the what's what I'm looking for. That was like the base of the show. Like, it was all cruiserweights, and then you had Hogan and Bischoff and all the boys, taking off for the whole third hour. But huge lover of Malenko. But
I love him too. The guy was great. I love when he first came in, when he was the the Iceman, and speaking of Sting, they put Malenko pretty much right into a program with Sting. When he came in and was starting to get over a little bit. So that's a big vote of confidence for that guy. Being an unknown guy that got put on TV and getting to work with Sting right away is pretty cool.
Yep. All right, who you got for number 4?
Okay, so number 4, I've got a guy that I'm sure a lot of people would put this guy on their list, but I just wanted to make sure that we covered him, because he really does need to get as much credit as he possibly can. Is Bam Bam Bigelow, and I think Bam Bam, unbelievable guy, unbelievable looking guy, super athletic. He just an absolutely insane look, right? I mean, there's nobody in really wrestling history that looks like that guy. I mean, for him being as big as he is, man, and being as flexible as he is, I mean, that's definitely a guy that it was combining a fat burner with an energy pretty frequently during his journey, during his DDP yoga journey, right? I mean, that's just what it is. I mean, that's how you start to build strength, and you go from 25 to 30 to 35 minutes, and that's how you start to build strength on the mat. But with Bam Bam, I mean, there's so many good things to say about him. I mean, obviously everybody knows the WrestleMania 11 match with Lawrence Taylor, right? And it gets panned a lot because that match went. That match feels like it went 35 minutes longer than it should have, right?
It did.
I mean, by the end of that, man, Lawrence Taylor is so blown up, and Bam Bam is just carrying him minute after minute after minute. Now, obviously, the match went way too long, but for them to give Bam Bam that kind of a vote of confidence to be in that high profile of a match at Mania with a big time celebrity is really, really kudos to him, right? And that's really great to see that. But all the ECW stuff with his matches with RVD are fantastic. All the stuff where he's partnered up with Douglas and Candido. I mean, that Candido's come up how many times in this in this podcast alone. I mean, that's a guy that could very easily be on here too. Chris Candido. But I mean, all of Bam Bam's stuff is just really great. I really like the Barry Windham match at Starrcade '88. And, I know that it's not everybody's favorite match in the world, but just being able to see a relatively young Bam Bam in there working with another guy who's a big athletic guy. And Wyndham is great, especially in his early days. He's really good. He's super athletic. He's a big, long athlete, and seeing him and Bam Bam work together, that's one of my favorite matches.
For sure. Yeah, no. Anytime you get a guy in there that's got a head tat, he's for sure combining an energy with a fat burner. All right. My number 4, I got Hurricane Helms. I love Hurricane so much. His all that stuff that he did with The Rock whenever he came back as Hollywood Rock is just gold. all the stuff that he did, being the superhero, and then being in the superhero in training with Rosie was phenomenal. One of those matches we just watched whenever we went on our trip to New York was Armageddon 03. Now, they didn't win the Tag Team Turmoil tournament in that thing, but they did beat La Resistance. And I'm a huge hater of La Resistance. And I just always loved Rosie and Hurricane together. And Hurricane had so many great gimmicks. Hurricane Helms, Gregory Helms. He just did so many good things. And even going back to 3 Count in WCW, hugely underrated in the business and an innovator of offense as well.
Yeah, I love that guy, man. I love 3 Count. That's another one of my guilty pleasures in wrestling history. I mean, Evan Courageous is another guilty pleasure from that group. And Shannon Moore was the other guy. I mean, they were awesome. That was a really fun trios team to watch. I mean, that was a good time. That was a good time watching those guys.
For sure. All right. Who is your number 3?
Okay, well, number 3, another guy I'm super happy to talk about is Rick the Model Martel. I'm a big Rick Martel fan. I've always been a Martel fan, former AWA world champ. And I mean, for him to be AWA world champ at that time, not the easiest thing in the world to do when you've got the son of the promoter running around the locker room, right? So for Martel to get that belt, it's pretty cool. I've always had a lot of appreciation for Rick Martel's matches. He's consistently an excellent worker in everything that he does. Unfortunately, he had a tag with Z-Man in the Can-Am Connection. Z-Man, one of the biggest pieces of trash in wrestling history, but. We got a friend Billy who's a big Z-Man fan, and shout out to Billy with Z-Man. So, but I really like the Strikeforce stuff with Tito Santana's fun. The turn on Tito was really fun, and I remember being a kid when he was starting to turn on Tito. Man, I hated Rick Martel when he did that, man. But excellent heel work excellent heel work as the model. Just consistently a great heel promo, man. Such an awesome thing to go back and check out those promos. But I think another guy that gets remembered for kind of a strange match is him being remembered for the blindfold match with Jake the Snake, which is it's gotta become a guilty pleasure, man. Because if you're not a wrestling fan and you watch that blindfold match, you're gonna be like, what the hell am I doing watching this right now? This is so ridiculous, right? But when you're a fan and you're able to just laugh at it and enjoy it, it's awesome. It's really fun, right? So I really like that match, even though it's not really all that great. But one of his matches, kind of his later career, that was really good was the Booker T match from Super Brawl 8 from '98 is really good, and that was when Booker T was kind of just starting out to be a big singles guy, right? And he was still kind of a relatively young guy. And he was super athletic, man. And for him working with Martel, I mean, that had to be a lot of fun for him to be a kind of a younger guy coming up in the ranks to get to work with a veteran like Martel. And I've always really liked Rick the Model Martel a lot.
I knew Martel was going to be on your list for sure.
Of course he is.
Yeah, and I really like Booker T from that era as well. And he's just uber athletic, but as he got deeper into his WWE run as King Booker, the absolute shits. He should have been on my overrated list. All right. Number 3 for me. I got William Regal. He's a man. And he's still doing it he doesn't even have to wrestle anymore, but that guy's just so good on the mic and had some title success. He definitely had the European title. Who else is going to have the European title in WWE for all those years? Always loved his work as general manager, and especially even now as he transitioned from the general manager at NXT and all that. Now he's with AEW and is the manager of the Blackpool Combat Clubs. I love all that, and I really like his WrestleMania 17 match with Chris Jericho and that whole feud that he had with Chris Jericho and how, Jericho peed in his tea and all that. Loved all of that, and just really huge fan of William Regal. And I can't say enough good things about Regal. He's just awesome.
Yeah. I feel like Lord Steven Regal wrestled on every WCW Saturday night for about 3 weeks. Right. And I feel like that guy was WCW television champion from like 1985 until like 2003. So,
Yes.
I mean, and those matches were great. I mean, he had really great matches with Steamboat. All the stuff that he did, in WCW, I was a huge fan of that stuff too. And then obviously when he went over to WWE, he did a great job over there. And then all the work he did in NXT, man. I mean, you can't say enough good stuff about what that guy's contributed to wrestling over the years.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I wish that they put up on Peacock. I wish they put up more WCW Saturday Night. And the one thing I have this is going to sound insane, but I really want them to put up Worldwide on Peacock. I know they never will do it, but I want to watch Worldwide so bad.
Sure.
And I know I'm going to hate it. But I just want to watch it so badly.
The thing that irritates me about that too, kind of on the same vein, is I've been trying to go back and find certain matches on Saturday night's main events over the years, and they don't have all the shows listed yet. So it's really, you're paying for the content, and I get it. They want to, unveil things at certain times and not put everything up all at once. But it would be nice to be able to go back and just find that stuff anytime you wanted to find it.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, we're in our top two. Who's number 2 on your list?
All right, Baker, we're getting down to it now, man. We're really getting down to crunch time here. So,
yeah.
So my number 2, and I want to say this up front. I did not go into this thinking that this guy was going to be this high on my list. I really didn't. But number 2 for me is Ultimo Dragon, and that is a guy that, I mean, I didn't realize how much of a fan I was of this guy until I started to do the work for this list, over the course of the past week. I mean, there's very few people in wrestling that I have more fun watching than Ultimo Dragon, man. I mean, this is a guy that was trained in Japan. He was trained in Mexico. He can work the Japanese style. He can work the Lucha Libre style. He's just so colorful and so much fun and so innovative in the ring. It's really fun to watch that guy, But looking for matches of his that are kind of, off the radar a little bit, because everybody kind of knows him from the WCW run and the WWE run too there for a little bit, but looking for stuff that's kind of off the radar. There's a couple Otani matches in Japan that are really good. So if you're looking for stuff with him, it's a little bit earlier, than the WCW stuff. That might be worth looking to, because I mean, most US fans, just like I am, were introduced to him through the WCW stuff, where he came out with Sonny Ono, and he had 45 different belts draped off of him, right? And that in itself is a really cool presentation, a really cool gimmick to introduce a guy. So I always thought that was really fun. But I mean, he's a guy with a really fast style, great look, such a cool blend of styles, man. But you always hear about people like Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, justifiably being the ones who've kind of influenced so many wrestlers down the line. But I'm willing to bet that Ultimo Dragon has influenced hundreds of people down the line too, that, we just haven't really heard about it yet. But I mean, the two Malenko matches with him in WCW for me are the ones that kind of stand out. And those are excellent, man. That's Clash 34 was a really good match, and Starrcade 96 is a really good match with Malenko too. And I mean, look, Malenko is going to have good matches with anybody. Yep. So seeing one of the most innovative, best high flying workers of all time in there with him is just a pleasure, man. It's a pleasure to watch those matches.
Yeah, and so like Ultimo, for sure, I think kind of recently who we can all think about who might be taboo to say his name right now, but Mr. Kenny Olivier, for sure is influenced by him, because he tried to do the whole title belts draped all over him last year. But I was introduced to Ultimo Dragon originally through the SmackDown Here Comes the Pain game. Never even heard of who that guy was, and then randomly he was just on the roster of that game, and I don't even remember seeing him on a show. I just remember seeing him in the game. And then obviously I've gone back and I've seen the Nitros and stuff like that. And you're right, that is one that I should have mentioned in Malenko. That Starrcade match was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, going back and watching those Ultimo Dragon matches are so much fun. And that's the only word I can really, use for it. I mean, it's just fun. It's fun to watch that guy work and to see him jump around and do innovative stuff and have great matches with anybody. It's a lot of fun to see it.
It's funny you mention him, because I just was showing my coworker today. He is not a wrestling fan. He's starting to he's starting to understand it, because I mean, that's obviously all I talk about, but I was showing him like the different styles of wrestling, and like the Japan style is the strong style. And then I showed him Lucha Libre, and I showed him the, I showed him Ray Phoenix, which kind of led into a Pentagon match that was recent with Ultimo Dragon and Pentagon, which I don't even know if it's the same Ultimo Dragon. I'm assuming it probably is. I don't know, but I thought that was awesome, especially that for the fact that he's on your list today. Because I literally just showed him that a couple hours ago.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's very cool.
All right, number 2 on my list is this one should pop the boys, is Das Wonder Kid, Alex Wright.
All right.
He's the classic dick dancing, the dick dancer before the real dick dancer, and we're not even gonna say his name, but I love Alex Wright. And literally any match that you can find where he beats the shit out of Disco Inferno is a great match. That's all I'll say about that. Because I just saw, I was watching a couple of Nitros. I can't remember which ones they were, which is why I don't have them dated here. But he had a feud with Disco. I think it was in 98 or 97 or something like that. And he just beat Disco every time. And I thought it was great because I can't stand Disco. Disco is for certain somebody that I left off of my overrated list that I'm so pissed, and I wish I could do it over again, because Disco would be over Big Show and over Sheamus. Because
I wish I could see a stat of, obviously there's no way you'd ever figure this out, but I wish I could see a stat of what wrestlers' matches have I skipped the most over the years. And it's Disco Inferno, man.
For sure.
What it is.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And like, I can't stand Disco Inferno, man. And he's even worse now, like on Twitter. Like that guy,
he's got a lot of opinions, that guy.
his time should be done on planet Earth. He needs to find somewhere else to live, because nobody here wants him here. And
oh man, yeah, I hear you.
But I'm taking away from Alex Wright, but Alex Wright, I love his matches, his presentation. It really sucks because, Barnett and all that deal, and he kind of got pushed aside and he really got the ceiling hung on him there. But I always thought, when I went back and watched those matches, like, how did this guy, like, they were talking him up on early when he debuted, and then it was just not like, he just never ever got to the next level. And I think that was on Bischoff. I don't think Bischoff would ever put him over, but say what you want about Bischoff today, but I don't know. I just always liked all of his matches, and just kind of really sucks that, he never got over the hump.
Yeah. I mean, my wife and I went to Germany on our honeymoon, and Alex Wright is from Nuremberg, and we went to Nuremberg on that trip, and we walked around Nuremberg for a whole day. Man, I can't tell you how disappointed I was that I didn't run into Alex Wright in Nuremberg. I mean, that's like that ruined the whole trip for me, the whole honeymoon. I didn't get to meet Alex Wright, but the run is Berlin, not so good, right? But I think fair, very fair. I think I like the city of Berlin a little bit better than the wrestler Berlin.
Berlin was so bad I forgot about it.
Well, as you probably should.
Yeah. But all right, so we're at the very top of the list. Who is your number 1?
Okay, Baker, I'm going to try to pop you here with this one. So, my number 1, most underrated of all time, is Gorilla Monsoon. And
will you stop?
I mean, I don't understand why people think that he was not great on the mic. Now let's just talk about that here for a second. Is he the best, play-by-play guy? Probably not. Probably not the best play-by-play guy. But think about what the presentation was of the WWF, right? You've got a babyface guy and a heel guy, right? You've got Monsoon working with Heenan, Monsoon working with Jesse Ventura. Both of those combinations, in my opinion, are probably top 2 or 3 combinations of announcing teams in wrestling television history, in my opinion. So I really always liked Monsoon. I always liked the fact that he presented it like it was a real sport, and always talked about it like it was a real thing, right? And I don't really understand why he was voted by the Observer. And look, there's a lot of good things that Dave does that I like a lot, and there's a lot of things that Dave does that I don't like a lot. So
we all do.
with the Observer, I'm not sure why he was voted worst commentator a couple times, but for the presentation of what the WWF was at that time, it was really good, and he was great at covering up people's mistakes in the ring too. So for me, number one underrated of all time. I really do enjoy listening to Gorilla Monsoon work the commentating.
That is a really good number one. I wasn't expecting to get that number one, but kind of like when we were kind of thrusted into the original Junk Bees, our group chat, I was a huge Gorilla Monsoon hater. And as time is passing, I am slowly turning to the babyface side of Gorilla Monsoon. So,
hey man, we're watching you grow up right in front of us, man. It's correct. Pretty fun. What a time to be alive.
I see your Gorilla Monsoon, and I'll raise you Lee Marshall.
Oh man, I love Lee Marshall.
I know. I love Lee Marshall so much. And for the fact that he was Tony the Tiger's voice on all those commercials is even better. And his 1-800-99-9900 call collect little tidbits they did every week where he ended it with something to just ending it with Weasel and Heenan is
so great.
Gold. I love, yeah, absolutely love Lee Marshall to death.
I mean, it's those little things like that really make the show special, and he was fantastic at it.
Yep. So my number one, people are probably going to think that this is going to sound ridiculous, but my number one is the fact that this guy, not that he ever really needed a major like world title, but he's been all over the place, worked every promotion, and mainly he never really got to that top because of his demons and basically for who he was too. But my most underrated, I feel, is Goldust, or just Dustin Rhodes in general. And I think that, he really got the huge push when he came in, when he first debuted as the Natural, for obvious reasons, because Dusty was there. Ends up leaving, going to WWE and becoming the Goldust character that we all know, and the androgynous and the mysterious, the mystique of what Goldust was, and being a good Intercontinental champion, I would say, and having the backlot brawl match with Piper at that WrestleMania. And he's had a lot of great stuff in his career, but he's just never, ever been the guy. And it always kind of felt like he could have maybe been the guy at some point, but he just never, ever broke through because he always had his demons. And some of my favorite stuff from Dustin is, obviously, I'm extremely biased because I'm a huge Rhodes family fan, but obviously in his later years, which this is incredible. The match that he had with Cody at Double or Nothing at his age and where he was in his career, for the fact that he could do that is incredible. And I will give a spoiler to our best tag teams, because my favorite tag team of all time, and this will for sure pop you, is Booker T and Goldust. And I love Goldust just doing whatever he wanted on that show with Goldberg and the NWO and being Steve Irwin, and all that shit is so fantastic. And Goldust has, and then we can get into the Tourette's thing too, because that whole thing, as politically incorrect as it is now, you cannot watch that and not laugh. I mean, is it a Tourette's gimmick? Probably. I mean, it's pretty obvious what it is. I mean, he was electrocuted, but not that is funny, but like him as the character, I love Goldust in the brand extension. And I love Dustin a little bit more now, because just for the fact he came out and he did a damn bunkhouse match a year and a half ago. Like, the dude can still go in the ring, and it's incredible. And just kind of always felt that Goldust was underrated, because he just never ever got to the height that he probably should have been.
Yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan in the world of the Natural in WCW. I'm still chasing that Galoob. So if anybody has the Dustin Rhodes Galoob that they want to, give to me for free, I'd love to take it from you. But, where he went between the natural and Gold Dust, I mean, that's got to be just the biggest transition for somebody, right? Over the course of maybe all of wrestling. I mean, it just shows you. I mean, when he was the natural, he didn't have a whole lot of personality. I mean, good worker, obviously good worker. Really good in the ring and everything, but didn't really have much personality. But when he got the paint and he got the outfit and he was able to just run wild with that character, man. I mean, he really just phenomenal job with that, man. It's just an unbelievable run.
And we won't mention 7.
Yeah, that wasn't good. I will say this though, to pop anybody who knows what we're talking about with 7. I mean, that they took that character from the movie Dark City, and Dark City is one of the best sci-fi movies of all time. So if you've never seen Dark City, go check that out because that's a pretty fun movie to watch.
Never seen it, but I'm sure that you probably dug deep into Amazon Prime for it.
Hey man, Rufus Sewell, you can't go wrong with that.
All right, well, that is our list. Do you want to run over the list one more time for everybody so we get our full top 10 run?
Yeah, let me just say again, what I wanted to do with mine was I wanted to just kind of go a little deeper, with guys that haven't really gotten as much notoriety over the course of time than what they probably deserved, right? So I want to go a little bit more of a deep cut. So my number 10 was Savio Vega. My number 9 was Gorgeous Gino Hernandez. Number 8, Tracy Smothers. Number 7, Paul Orndorff. Number 6, Mortis / Canyon. Number 5, Meng / Haku. Number 4, Bam Bam. Number 3, the model Rick Martel. Number 2, Ultimo Dragon. And my number 1 was Gorilla Monsoon.
I love your list. Your list is deep cuts. And going off of what Jarhead said here, my list is basically compiled of, I mean, the common theme here is all of mine are cruiserweights that never ever extended outside of the cruiserweight division. And so my list, number 10, excluding Dan Barry. Dan Barry is obviously the outlier to my list here. But
we love you, Dan. We love you.
We love you, Dan. But number 10 is Dan Barry. Number 9, Tajiri. 8 is Billy Kidman. 7, Lance Storm. 6 is Chad Gable. 5, Dean Malenko. 4 is Hurricane. 3, William Regal. 2, Das Wonder Kid. And number 1, Gold Dust.
Awesome. Love it.
So you got anything else you want to share on the Podski? But is there anybody else? Anything else you want to plug on the Podski here?
Man, I just want to say again how much fun it was to come on here and do this, and talk a little wrestling with you, and get this thing going. But love being here. I definitely appreciate the invite. I'm looking forward to coming back again, sometime in the future. But a lot of fun, man. The Podski's great. I listen to it every week. I think you're doing a heck of a job with it. It gets better every single week, man. So I'm really happy for you.
Sure. Thank you. And thanks for being on. We are for sure going to have you on as a reoccurring guest. We're going to kill the line here, but I believe you're going to be our top 10 list guy.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm all in.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on the Podski. We'll for sure have you back. And thank you.
Hey, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
All right. Huge thank you to AZ Jarhead. What an episode. That one was for sure for the boys, looking for all the pops. And I know a bunch of them really popped me to the moon, some of them. So, but again, huge thank you to AZ Jarhead. And thanks to all of you for listening to the Podski. Our show is growing every week here. I'm getting so many more downloads a week. We've already surpassed the 300 mark. So thank you to all of you who are listening to the Podski. We're going to keep this going for as long as we want to, because we can. And hopefully you all enjoy everything that we're doing here, and you rate, review, subscribe. You're putting us over. You're showing us the love, and giving us the follow on Twitter at @the_Podski, following us on Facebook, all of the good stuff that you can always possibly do for the show. interact with us. Let us know how you're feeling about how we're doing, and we will see you next time on the Podski.